Hello, this is Georgie Dragonfly, Cosmic Heart Conversations, and we're now here with Damien Knoll to talk about his beautiful journey and all of his light language and his beautiful artwork. So he's now going to introduce himself. Welcome, Damien.
Hi, Georgie. Beautiful to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me. So, in the most simplistic terms, I would consider myself and what I offer as being a witch. What do I mean by that? Because obviously, these people are going to have lots of various different ideas, concepts around what the word witch refers to. If we look at the etymology of the word from the Old English, it relates to the word Wicca, which I'm sure many people are familiar with in terms of the neo-pagan spiritual religious movement. So if we think of Wicca in terms of wicker baskets, so Wicca means to weave. And it then from the Proto-Indo-European, which is the root language, we understand the word wiki to be rooted in the word Y, W-Y. And that relates again to this concept or idea of weaving and to magic, what it is to weave, what it is to work with the weave of life. And then tracing that into the Buddhist tradition and esoteric Buddhism and Tantra. We have Tantra meaning the weave or the loom. And we have what are known as the Dakini, who are the female wisdom keepers. They're also known as sky dancers. So if you think of witches flying on brooms, that's that relationship. Also, if we look at again at the etymology of the word witch and tracing it to Wicca, why, there's a deep relationship, not religion. That's what I'm looking for. I'm thinking of Wicca in terms of the religion, which is why I'm saying religion, relationship with wisdom. And so Wicca is also translated to wise one as well, so witches are seen to be keepers of wisdom. In the esoteric Buddhist tradition or Tantra, wisdom is seen as the feminine principle or mother. It's really not feminine, but because it's seen as being the source of enlightenment, it's associated with the mother, thereby the feminine principle, but really it encapsulates both the masculine and feminine and transcends them. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll call it mother or the feminine principle. And so within relationship to that, we can see a witch as a wisdom keeper. And wisdom really being that which relates to a clear seeing of reality, a clear seeing of life. And the masculine aspect of that being compassion. And those two coming into harmony with one another, really being what relates to our dharma, or the focus of our purpose within the world. So we could call it, I suppose, New Age spirituality, better terminology, that would really equate to the threefold flame of the heart. So love, light, and power, wisdom, compassion, and power, or right action. So a witch, from my understanding, is really somebody that is focused upon that deep relationship with what it is to express wisdom within the world and to marry that with that principle of compassion within the world. And when we think of wisdom, we can think of that, from one sense, we can think of it in terms of knowledge, but it's not knowledge. Knowledge is that which is learnt. Knowledge is that which is really coming through the mind. And wisdom is that which is deeper than mind. It's really that relationship with mystery. And so knowledge is anything that we can know or we can learn, and thereby is subject to mind and conditioning and belief, concept, etc., etc. Whereas wisdom is something that, as it's not rooted in knowledge, or it's not rooted in mind, it's not rooted ultimately in duality. It's rooted in a deep relationship with the mystery of life. And witches are really those who live within the mystery and have that deep relationship with mystery, is another word for the divine. And what else to say around that? Yeah, I think that's sort of summed it up. We can obviously discuss that more if you so wish. And I just wanted to give a sort of briefish, as it were, explanation of the nature of my path, how I see myself, and my offering.
Yeah, and owning that status, because it has been even in a community that probably would personally probably see themselves as, or would hold the archetype of a witch, wouldn't want to be called a witch because of, you know, the many different experiences that people may have had in other lifetimes and the connotations that it does have now as well. So it's really beautiful that you've brought that to the table, the real truth, explanation of where it really comes from, the root of the word and the meaning and the definition of that experience that you are taking on as your own, as your being. You're standing in that, and I really honor that. I'm thankful to hear you. Yeah, your I am. So where have you started from to become so embodied as the witch and to accept who you truly are? Where did it all begin?
So I grew up in London, where the school that I went to taught Sanskrit, philosophy, meditation, and so I've always really had an interest in such through that. And then when I was around about, maybe about 12 or 13, I had a near-death experience, and that really sort of blew everything open in a huge way, and was very, very out of body for many, many a good year, deeply connected to spirit. And that state of being out of body created some type of, I suppose you'd call it kind of higher dimensional merging, because I was out and had many, many experiences of, I suppose you'd call them multi-dimensional, higher dimensional beings, visitations, and that led me then into my early 20s, journeying through Egypt and India as well, and sitting with various different teachers and traveling through the temple system there, and learning a lot around those cultures and their understanding of the nature of awakening, embodiment, and nature of multidimensionality and healing. And then that moved into my 30s, and much more a process of coming into the body. And so I studied Tibetan medicine, Chinese medicine, a lot of various different forms of body-based psychotherapeutic type practice as well, just to really help the body to integrate and ground. And it was so much of my journey through my teens and 20s, as I said, was very much that all sort of movement. And a lot of just avoidance of the body and what was sitting in the body, And through the 30s, it's like, okay, coming back into the body, and really that appreciation of awakening as that journey of what it is to really deepen into presence. And a lot of my experiences through my sort of teens, 20s, whilst very beautiful, were very much more what I would term as being very deeply expanded ego states, of sort of moving into oneness. And oneness is lovely, really beautiful experience and very blissful. But the, I suppose, the clue comes in terms of the language that one uses. Like people will talk about being in a very expanded state of consciousness, for example. Um, Whereas when there is a genuine awakening from how I understand and experience it myself, it's much more that sense of self is no longer there.
Mm.
And so that usual sense of us as ego is gone. Whereas in oneness, that's still there. Even there's a sense of someone that is one with everything.
Mm.
And so that process through my 30s and into my 40s now has been much more that sort of process of deepening within that, which is really, I suppose, a process of going inwards in that sense. That process of, expanded could be seen as more sort of a process of out, 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 out. And in some cases, there can be a lot of dissociation within that as well, because it's nice to hang out in those higher dimensions and not necessarily feel what's going on here, as it were.
Inside. How would you do that? Because you were sort of talking a minute ago as well. I quite like that of explanation of determining where you were. So you learnt that through, like, was there something that turned in you to make you go, oh, I need to start, you know, looking at my body and going into the more like herbal medicine side of things? What was it that really helped you determine that? Because there could be people potentially listening that think, oh, I'm in this oneness, I'm in the oneness, and they've hit it, they've got it. So how do we bring that back?
Yeah, for myself, it was really from the understanding of, sorry, I forget who originally actually said it. It might have been Papaji or Ramana, maybe, or even Nisgradata, someone of that nature. Something along the lines of saying, for every going, there is a return. And so if you think of it in terms of like a rubber band, for example, you stretch it far out enough and it's going to go completely the other way. And there is really no escaping reality. At the end of the day, we can try as much as we like, but there's no escaping reality. And so that process of out, 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 out was beautiful and part of my process on my path. And as I said, it created a sudden type of energetic bridging and sudden development of the nervous system, which allows me to do the work that I do now, and to have an understanding of the nature of that bridging and our multidimensionality and how that's all sort of set up within the system. But for me, it was still the understanding of however far I went out, that stuff was still there. Going, we can go out, 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 and out, but eventually we have to come back.
Yeah, I suppose it's the lesson was in that, and that's something that you just had to experience, and potentially other people just. But it's that knowing that you will, like the elastic band, you'll come back. Good, nice. So so what was it that you were feeling that was calling you back? Is this just human things, egoic stuff that you needed to address?
I think on one level it was, yeah, like the stuff of life that needed to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And on another, I think it was this deep actual desire for the truth
Yeah.
and for God and for awakening.
Yeah.
And that's originally, what motivated me to go out and out, because it was like, not really enjoying it here. Let's go out, and hide in God, which we do. And we hide in higher dimensional states of consciousness and avoid. And the ego is going to use whatever it can to avoid what is here, even if that looks like some very elevated, very expanded egoic consciousness state. And so the divine went, okay, you've done that long enough, played that. No. And so I think it was a combination of both in that sense, a deep desire for truth and a prayer for that, as well as, the maturity to actually turn around and go, okay, I'm going to face this. Because it takes deep maturity to actually, admit, okay, and be present with what is here. It's a lot easier to sit in that expanded state, and avoid it, and not feel it. And when we're in that very expanded sort of state of consciousness, it can feel like that stuff is not there. And we've resolved it all. It's like, it's still there. It's just that you're out here.
So with that, so we're coming into this state. So what was your journey with also light language? Did that come in during that time then, when you was that expanded? Is that the time that it really
It
got
would have been probably would have been about 17 or 18 when it first started to come through. And when it first started to come through, my understanding of it was a lot more rooted in, so seeing it as a kind of channeled type language. And people now will talk about light language in terms of like Palladian or Syrian, for example, and various different streams in which that language can present itself. And for myself, in my sort of teens, 20s, it was a lot more of that type of experience, and really tapping into, I suppose, what you would call cosmic or galactic, the streams of consciousness and beings, and communicating on that type of level. Whereas now it's evolved much more into just this sense of light language as really being that focus of really just our authentic heart expression and how we speak from that space. Whilst there's still appreciation of those other streams and how we can tap into those and levels of consciousness and how they create certain shifts within this subtle energetic system also. So my introduction of it was really through a friend who was speaking it also, who I knew through just finished college, maybe college, university, that sort of period.
Oh boy, you had that journey. So at that age, I'm really quite impressed. And I like that you've also been because you did learn Sanskrit, and something that I've always mentioned is that I feel that these ancient languages, we could even call them light language. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that. But
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the understanding is in terms of Sanskrit and mantra is that the sages would have sat and basically listened to the sounds of the universe. And that's how they formulated mantra and these languages. So in many respects, yes, we could see them as light language. And certainly I'm aware for myself and many of my friends, when they speak light language, there are certain, we call them dialects, that sound very Tibetan or Hebrew. And whether people are tapping into past life memory there, or tapping into something that is sitting in the genetics in terms of ancestral memory, who knows in that respect. But certainly, I have friends who speak Tibetan, and I have friends that speak Sanskrit, and I have friends that speak Old Icelandic. And when I'm speaking light language, I'm like, you do know what you've just said? I'm like, no, I have no idea whatsoever. And they share that certain phrases that they can hear. So who ultimately now understands the mystery of how that all works. But as I said, we can look at it, maybe we're tapping into something from a past life level, or maybe we're just tapping into that in consciousness through the collective field in that sense. I prefer to look at it from the perspective of being in the mystery of it, rather than saying it's this, that, or the other. Because whilst it can be useful to have an understanding of these things, and it gives us a certain framework and structure to work through, and we can have an understanding of, if I say a certain something in light language, it's going to have this effect. It's also beautiful to be in the mystery of that, and the not knowing of that.
It's quite multifaceted, isn't it? But it's really, and again, like what we don't know what we're truly tapping into, because it's vast. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Because you'd probably hear some of that yourself if you ever tune into hearing someone speaking, and then you even got friends that are confirming that. So that's really good confirmation that it's coming from the heart, and then it's whatever field your heart, I suppose, is potentially resonating as a potential.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you were in college and you were introduced to it with a friend, was this more like an initiation into it for you?
Yeah, I suppose one could look at it like that. Like even in college, I was doing tarot for people and Reiki and all of that sort of type of stuff. So I had an interest within this, and many of my friends at college, also had an interest in healing and crystal healing and Reiki and that sort of type of stuff. So we would hang out, swap sessions, do readings for one another. And as I said, my friend was speaking at and had a very powerful Kundalini awakening, probably about a year prior to such, where for around about 6 months was also in a very, very deeply expanded sort of state of oneness, where the sense of ego is still there, but because it's so expanded, it's very, very thin in a certain way. And sitting with her, definitely, when you sit with somebody like that, there's a sort of energetic resonance that occurs within the field. And so I suppose you could see it as kind of like initiation or attunement in that sense, in terms of just aligning whatever within my own system was resonant with that, and something went, okay, I recognize that, switched on. not in any sense of her, formally doing anything.
Mm.
In terms of, okay, I'm going to initiate you into light language or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And I find that's, much more often really where the magic happens. Nice spaces where we're not, shall we say, planning to do something. Not that there isn't a place for that. It can be beautiful to actually, say, will you initiate me into, etc., etc. And absolutely magic happens in those spaces as well for our focus of intention and alignment with the divine. But those places where the divine sort of goes where we're least expecting it, for myself at least, have been the most powerful moments. Beyond anything that I would consciously, shall we say, intend to do myself.
Yeah. So it was a really nice just flow, and it was meant to be, you can even say, divinely orchestrated. And with that, did you ever experience any like moments of doubt throughout this journey of, this sound is coming out of my mouth, these dialects? Are there moments of where is it coming from? What is it, and then where do we come back into, the stillness within ourselves to remember, okay, we're all good, we're sane. Because I know there's definitely people out there that will go through that, a person, so.
Yeah, for myself, within my own experience, not really, because this sort of stuff has just always been so kind of natural to me that for a long time it was actually very strange that people didn't experience it. Conversely, so it's like, really? Oh, okay. And again, I think that was very much part of my sort of process of coming in, as it were. But yes, absolutely. I have many people who I've worked with since who have very similar experiences to what you just described in that sense. And, I explain it in terms of, as we just touched upon, it's really just to approach it from that perspective of being in the mystery of it and seeing it actually just as something that you're playing with and having fun with. And because when we become too, shall we say, sort of logical or mindy around it, and our mind kicks in, and the mind's going to run away with whatever story it's going to run away with. And it can come up with all sorts of types of craziness. And so it's like going, okay, that's an interesting thought to be having. But what if we approach it, just with an attitude of, actually, I don't know. And I'm just having fun with this.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to me and they're like, well, it sounds like completely gobbledygook. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds like complete gobbledygook. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? We can ascribe all sorts of meaning to that with this. It's like, yeah, the reality of it is it simply sounds like gobbledygook. Yeah, that is the reality. But then we make that mean da 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 da. We make, oh, I'm just making it up, or it sounds like I'm crazy, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, actually, have fun with it. Actually check out what is your direct experience of it in this moment.
Yeah.
If we approach it with an attitude of fun, we're also approaching it with an attitude of openness and an attitude of, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A child doesn't play because it matters, or there's some sort of, I'm doing it right or wrong, or whatever the case may be. It's just enjoying itself.
Yeah, definitely.
We look at the nature of life. We see life as divine play. in that sense.
Yeah.
And opening into that really opens us into innocence as well, and a deep appreciation of beauty also. But that requires a depth of surrender, and surrender obviously also requires trust as well. And so, our exploration of the language of light can also be an exploration of that. What is it to really open into a deeper appreciation of surrender, of heart, of beauty, of play? And then rather than light language just being something that we're speaking, as it were, what does our actual exploration of it deepen us into? How we approach it, how we open to it. And for myself, it was very much my sort of beginning journey of it was much more that sort of academic, mind-based, like, I want to understand what I'm saying here, what I'm doing. And that's beautiful from one perspective, because we have an appreciation through that of, okay, yeah, if I sit with this and I say this, this happens in consciousness, and this happens in the energy system. And, but if we get caught up in that, we're missing the magic of it, and it becomes very robotic in a certain sense.
Yeah.
And so it relates back to what I was touching upon earlier in terms of that masculine and feminine type flow, where we have that feminine wisdom type flow, which is coming in beyond mind, where we're just opening into our direct experience of what is here in the moment. And then that masculine aspect of compassion, where we're welcoming that, lovingly and compassionately. And there is no right or wrong. It's like we just get to play and explore and be present with it. So yeah, that's what I would say to people who are perhaps just entering into an exploration of the language of light, or people who have been speaking it for many, many years, even, ready to approach it with beginner's mind in that sense. No matter how experienced we may think that we are, I'm learning new things every day around it, and my experience of it is different moment to moment.
Yeah, we're constantly shifting our perception, and as we evolve within, how we wish to express does also change. And we're talking about it as if it's just a language that's spoken through the mouth, but we also know that even for yourself, the artwork, movement, and probably many other ways that we could express, and my own perception, is quite similar, just this innate beingness, and just expressing yourself, really freely, and not having those constructs. Because I know that we have this tendency to sort of look at the inner child to try and resurface some of that essence, and it's like, it's not necessarily the child. This is my own anyway perception. It's like, it's that was very natural at that childlike age to express, and then that's what we're really trying to resurface. But and then for yourself, I imagine that just never was lost. You enabled that spark to always be there in the forefront and lead the way. Perhaps that's where I've received from that.
Yeah, I would think so. As I was saying previously, all of this type of stuff, for want of a better word, I don't know what else to call it, has always felt just very, very natural. For myself, it's been much more so the, shall we say, the kind of like human stuff of life that has been challenging. And really the understanding of how do we bring light language to that? How does that really support us to show up here?
Yeah.
Because a lot of my sort of beginning journey to discover light language was really a sense of wanting to escape that and just going, I don't want to be here, and up and out. And was much more comfortable for me, like through my teens, early 20s, really to hang out in that sort of very expanded egoic state of consciousness, and in that sort of experience of oneness. And there's a lot of light there and a lot of love, so it's a beautiful space to sit within, but it's not very practical in terms of everyday life whatsoever. And ultimately it's not really transformational. It's transcendence or escapism in a sense. And so that whole process of what really is the practical application of light language, and how do we really bring that into a grounded focus of presence within life. And for myself, it was, I say, really coming into that attitude of deep playfulness and that space of coming into innocence, like you were touching upon in terms of the inner child and how it's natural for the inner child to express from that place. We can really see the inner child or the divine child as that quality of innocence. And innocence is not naivety. Innocence is really that place where we are unharmed, as it were, in that place where before we learned in the necessity to protect or to mask ourselves or to leave or transcend, in that space of innocence, we're just safe to be here. There is no necessity to mask. And so we can be authentic, which is really what I see as the expression of the language of light. It's that authentic expression of our being or innocence with one another, without masking or manipulating or seducing or all of the stuff that we do, because fundamentally we don't feel safe. Rooted in our experience of fundamental sense of separation from our essence. And so again, for myself, really that process of aligning with the language of light can also really be seen as a process of aligning with our essence. Really a process of healing that original wound, which is really that loss of our original innocence, which we see in the Western mystery tradition through the sense of Eden and Adam and Eve and the apple and coming into self-knowledge. And again, coming back to that sense of self-knowledge. Knowledge is that which is learned. The mind. It's that sense of our first coming into our sense of I am. And everything that evolves from that. We first of all need a I am to then have a I am my story of and awakening is really that whole deconstruction of that sense of egoic sense of art. And then what emerges is as true identity.
Which is something, it is an experience in itself, isn't it, to truly understand. Everybody just sink that in. I am. And with this, you have developed this ability to create such divine artwork. I mean, you are playing, and with the play that you are creating for service for others. How did you come about into that? How did this surface from all that you were doing as throughout your teens? I imagine that it didn't just become.
So, as I briefly mentioned, in my early 20s, I went out to Egypt. So I was doing tours there, basically taking people through the temple system, and that was really the beginning of my, shall we say, sort of working type life, and offering healing and sessions and Reiki and that sort of type of stuff. And I've been doing that for, gosh, maybe 20 odd years now. And that's obviously evolved and deepened over the years. And the artwork really started, must be about 10 or so years ago now. You'll surely appreciate from what I've briefly spoken about how I have an interest in Tantra and Tibetan Buddhism, and there's obviously a deep relationship through Tantra with mandalas and yantras and sacred art also. And so I just took up the pen, and I love to draw. So started sketching and doodling away. And over the years, that's just developed into what I offer today in that sense. And really an understanding of how art is a doorway into that deep appreciation of beauty, and beauty as a inherent quality of innocence, and how it is that we can't really truly appreciate beauty unless we are in that space of innocence and open-heartedness. We can appreciate beauty conceptually, for sure, through the framework of the mind, but to really drop into a deep appreciation of beauty where the mind stops and something just goes, is completely different. And so the nature of my exploration with art has really been an exploration of that also, in terms of how is it that art really communicates beauty, and be that in terms of the visual art, paintings, or light language in terms of singing or movement based. It's really an expression of how divinity is expressing through form as beauty, and how that deepens into us into that space of innocence and open-heartedness and intimacy and connection with life. And so all of the artwork, whatever form it presents itself in, at its core really has that, I suppose we could call it transmission or essence. There's obviously lots and lots of different ways in which art can express itself, and paintings can express themselves, and how they communicate that. Just as there are many, many various different spiritual teachings out there, but in their essence, they're all communicating the same thing. They're really communicating that invitation into an embodied awakening, an expression of our essence through form.
Yeah, because there was something that we spoke about actually before we started, and I thought it was so interesting how you're speaking about them being keys and doorways. So I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that.
Sure. So we can think of, a lot of people will call the art codes, for example. And for myself, the art is not the actual code in and of itself. It's, as we said, a key or a doorway into connection with that. And so you can think of the code as itself as being that which really sits as our essence. And the art is just a pictorial representation of that. It's something that we're using to assist us to tune into that.
Yeah.
And so there's like the famous saying, gosh, it's a famous saying, like I'm gonna forget what it is. It's the one about the finger pointing at the moon, which I'm sure you've heard of. Or the moon reflected in water, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's gone from my brain now. It's a famous saying, but I'll articulate it as well as I'm able to. So it's something along the lines of like not mistaking the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself, in that sense. And so, not mistaking our experience of enlightenment for what enlightenment actually is. Not mistaking the art or the code for what the actual code is in reality. And so when we go and visit an art gallery, for example, and we can look at the picture or the code, but what is it that really actually evokes within us as the response?
Yeah.
And if we follow that, that's when we actually really connect with the essence of the code, rather than just the picture itself. We can look at that picture on a very surface type level, and we're just like, oh, it's just a nice, pretty picture.
Yeah.
Very nice. Or we can look at it, connect with it, open to it through our heart, and drop deeper and deeper and deeper into that. And that's really where we open into the essence of the code itself. And of course, the picture is a vehicle for that. So it has its purpose and its place within that. And whilst it's not necessary that we even have that vehicle, if we're attuned enough, we can just drop straight in. It's useful to have the vehicle in that sense. Like it's very useful to have a spiritual teacher on the path to support us, because there's all sorts of ways in which we can get lost down the path, all sorts of side routes that we can go down. So a spiritual teacher or guru that's walked the path and completed is very useful in that sense. Just as code is, we can consider it as being a guide also, in a way that's attuning us into that appreciation of beauty and openness and what's actually being transmitted through the code, because there is a transmission of the essence of the consciousness of whoever has produced that code also, in that sense. And if who has produced that code is deeply aligned enough with awake space, and they're drawing it from that space, there's that transmission of awakeness that comes through, that which doesn't have any of their personality or egoic consciousness or stuff in it. Whereas there is certainly art out there that has a lot of that in it also, which is fine. It's another expression of the divine and life. It's, what do you want to connect with? Some people love rock music and they want to connect with that. Other people, I want to connect with awake space.
Yeah, music is a instrument of taking you into certain consciousness as well. I've certainly experienced the different vibrations of that. And we can go back again to those ancient teachings with what you said about mandalas, and tankas. It's a meditative practice. So there's this just looking at stuff, scrolling through your Facebook or Instagram feeds, you go, oh yeah, I'll take that in, and then you just let it go on. It kind of takes the depth and the sacredness that you could truly receive from really sitting with it in a sacred space. There's definitely volumes of energy that we can receive from the keys, depending how we sit with them and play with them. Yeah, truly beautiful. So I'm wondering if you feel called to share a transmission that will help potentially, integrate, or well, we'll leave it up to the heart to decide what we receive from whatever's being open for us today.
Sure, absolutely. Be happy to. Just take a moment to bring the focus of your awareness to your heart. You're just gently tuning into the sense of I am. Sense of who and what it is that you experience yourself to be. And then just very gently, having a sense of letting go of the am. Sense of there somehow mysteriously being something here that supports that letting go. Like the natural current of a river, just the presence mysteriously of this something is supporting that letting go. Within that there's also the sense of all of this history, conditioning, beliefs, attitudes, concepts, positions, ways of forming yourself within life, responding to life. It's just this gentle letting go. Now a letting go of the I. And once again, this mysterious presence that supports that. The natural and gentle movement of a river flowing. Also call that divine flow. Some kind of letting go into divine flow. There's a movement of awakening, a movement of healing, a movement of opening to what is here. With the I, there's all of this sense of who you are within all of that history, that conditioning, with those attitudes, beliefs, opinions, positions. And there's an ownership of that, an attachment to all of that. Just in this moment, somehow, mysteriously, through grace, letting go of that. Movement of opening into divine flow, letting go of the am, letting go of the I. Coming to what is before I am, what is not dependent upon I am to exist, and yet is the source of I am. Just opening to that through your heart. And just sensing if even the tiniest thread of that in your heart, I think what we could describe as being a divine thread, within that thread, the mantra, ah, is seen as the root or foundation of all mantras. It's also seen as the seed sound or seed syllable of the heart, anahata, which means the unstruck note. The unstruck note can also be seen as relating to silence, from out of which all sound arises. As unstruck, it can also be seen as relating to innocence. So within this divine thread, the mantra Ah, seed syllable of the heart, seed, the root, the foundation of all mantras. Opening you to innocence, beauty, the root of that which is at the heart of the language of light. R is the root of all sound, all mantras. R is the root seed syllable of the Prajna Paramita Sutra. Prajna Paramita being the mother of wisdom. The mother of all Dakinis. So this presence of primordial divine wisdom and compassion within the heart, opening you to beauty, to innocence. Just receiving the blessing of that. Feeling that blessing radiating throughout the entirety of your whole being. All facets or dimensions or chambers of your heart. Magnifying the Dhamma. All positive qualities throughout the entirety of the field of your psyche. And as that blessing comes into a focus of completion, simply offer gratitude. For the gift that has been given, for all that's been shared and communicated over the course of this discussion. Gratitude for how it has touched our heart, and how it may touch the heart of all beings. Gently bring the focus of awareness to the navel, grounding, centering, stabilizing, integrating. Giving thanks. Blessed be.
Thank you so much, Damien. That was beautiful, and I think I went a little coming back. Wonderful, yes, thank you. Really appreciated. Really value this conversation. I think a lot of people could learn some very beautiful wisdom from your heart. Just allowing that to just integrate and just feeling into the energy, into the field, and just allowing the play and the joy and the beauty and the surrender. Is there any particular offerings that you would like to share?
So people can find me from my website, which is awakeningheart.co.uk. I am currently in the process of reformatting it because I'm going to start teaching again, probably in March time. At present, I'm more focused on the art and doing sessions, which I will continue to do, but the primary focus of my work will change to teaching. And so people, if they visit the site in the next sort of few weeks, they may see it in transition phase, as it were, into that. But yeah, all the information about my offerings can be found on the website. And as I said, I do one-to-one sessions with people, so you're very welcome to contact me in relationship to that. And I also offer group sessions quite regularly, usually at least once a month. And they follow various different themes. So we might explore fear for 1 month, for example. Another month we may explore our relationship with sexuality or money, etc., etc. And then there's also the art, as I mentioned, and you're very welcome to explore that. What I can be found, I'm also, as we said, on your Instagram. There's a lot of my art on that. That is Awakening Heart 11. So, and I'm also on Facebook, just under my name, Damien Nola. So find me there.
Because do you still offer the groups the Light Language Lounge? Are you still doing that?
Yes, thank you for mentioning such. So yes, myself and Suzanne Amara and Denise Chadwick, who I don't know if you know also, you may. So they may likely also be on the podcast also, so you'll get to meet them as well. So relatively regularly, it's generally every week actually. We offer a free service event at 7:30 p.m. UK time. And it's just an invitation for you to gather with us in the exploration of the language of light. And really it's presence-based. So as we've been discussing, it's based in this focus of what it is to approach the language of light or authentic heart expression from this place of play. And so we don't have any fixed agenda or any fixed idea of what the language of light is. We just come, we show up, we connect through a brief meditation, just dropping us into that space of heart. And it's just a very beautiful, heart playful exploration of what it is to really deepen in that expression of our essence. And as we were saying, really how that touches practically upon our experience of day-to-day life here. And then sometimes there's also space for questions and answers in the discussion around light language as well. And it's, as I said, it's a free service event, so you're free just to show up.
Yeah.
And details of that are posted on my Facebook page. There's also a light language lounge page on Facebook as well. But if you're interested in that, you can just get in touch with me and I can point you in the right direction toward that. Thank you for mentioning such. It had completely out my mind.
So I think we're that wherever you know that beautiful transmission you took us. It felt a shame even to sort of then go into asking all these different things, but we're on a podcast and it's really good to just get a really nice feel of Damien's frequency. He's just emitting and being in service in this way, and so now you have the options to explore this even further yourselves, and what divine offerings they are. Really beautiful, and we're really grateful. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to put all of the information under this podcast, so you'll be able to reach out, and this has been a really beautiful experience for myself, and I'm sure everybody here. And honestly, if anybody wants to speak and reach out about anything that's come up during this particular episode, you can reach out to either one of us, and we'll be happy to speak further, I'm sure. Yeah, cool. All right then. So yeah, sending you all loads of love, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you and goodbye.